Welcome to the Sunday Comics Brunch, where we dine on comics and comics headlines, hosted by Mr. Anderson and Meredith Logren. Join them and their guests as they go over the comics headlines from this week and their projects, brought to you by the Comics News Wire and Geek Insider. Warning and disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed on this live feed are those of the guests, speakers, and or hosts, and do not necessarily reflect the beliefs, official policies, ethics, or positions of the content providers, advertisers, additional hosts, and or guests, hosting sites, groups, or entities attached to this programming. Viewer discretion is advised. All right, guys, we have a very special Sunday Comics Brunch. Got a full group of amazing people, all connected between the idea of working together to create content through collections, anthologies, and even the 8-page challenge from Comic Book School. We're going to go around the room and do introductions. If you don't know who I am, I'm the comics advocate. I am Mr. Anderson, and I create books about fetish monsters and more. Which one interests you the most? Meredith, you're up. We'll go big screen.
All right. Sounds good. Hello, big screen. I am Meredith Logren. I am the associate editor over at Geek Insider, as well as the executive producer of the Geek Insider podcast. I'm also one of the founding 5 of Terraform Comics, and we're really excited about Continuum. Hopefully we'll be talking about that very soon with some exciting news and announcements. I'm going to keep it short and simple and talk to you guys later. Who am I passing the baton to? You're on mute, Rob.
I was changing it to look, and I was trying to see it. Dee is up next. Dee, tell them who you are.
Hi, I'm Dee Alley. I'm the editor of the Comic Book School Panel 1 anthology comic book. It's coming soon, December 29th. We basically got together and put together an anthology in this crazy year of 2020 for comics for new and independent creators. So we're looking forward to talking about it.
All right, I'm going to put up C. Michael then.
All right, I'm C. Michael Lanning, independent mad scribbler. Currently working with Silverline on the comic book project Reject, and very own Meredith Lachlan on something coming up for the Terraform Compendium. You can always find me on Facebook. Send me a friend request, and I will look you over and see if I want you.
Well, let's hope we're all wanted. What's up, guys? I'm Chuck Pino. I'm a freelance writer and editor. I've worked on such projects as Belial, Welcome to the Void, and Essence House, which is an audio drama that you can check out right now. Season 2 is ending. We would love it if you binge that bad boy. You can find it on all your podcast stations. And I'm excited to be here. I've done tons of work with Rob, so let's see what's going on today.
All right. Hey, Rob, you're up.
I already did it.
No, I said I meant like continue.
Oh. I was like,
I was on his ass on Friday because he wants to be a poo.
no,
I
hold
want
on.
my job to be Meredith being on my ass. I think I would be all about that.
Be careful what you ask for.
Now, hold on.
I may not be as gentle as you think.
You promise?
This guy Chuck wanted to know what the 8-page challenge was. I mean, like, really, Chuck? I mean, you just edited it. Yeah, I mean, like,
Well, I didn't remember what it was, right? So I was like, what? And then as soon as you mentioned it when we were talking beforehand, I'm like, oh, 8-page challenge. Yes, I remember now. Okay.
and in fairness to Chuck, he does work on an extremely large amount of stuff. Like, in fairness, and we work on stuff together. He's like, wait a minute, are we doing something for something? What is it now?
What am I doing?
Yeah, he's like, sometimes they just wheel him in front of the camera, and he's there like, just what? I'm ready.
Yeah, let's do it. And you know what? It's funny talking with clients and whatnot now. I won't use the characters' names. I'll be like, all right, so you're main. This is the issue right here, and I'll start using, like your protagonist, your antagonist, your sidekick, all this kind of shit, because I can't remember all the names, guys. And you have some people who delight in, I want to see how many characters I can fit in there, which I'm against, by the way. And so then it's like, yeah, I'm not going to remember all those names, gang. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah. Now let me ask you, because we're going to go around first. I'm hoping Buddy shows up, but I want to talk to Erin a bit. How did you get involved with the 8-page challenge? Because you got a pretty good story. Because I sat through that 3-hour video you guys were on. I'm forgetting.
Yeah, that
What
was
was the name
intense.
of the place? What was the name of who did it? I can't. I drawing.
Oh, Joe and Jarrell.
Okay, yeah.
Comic Cast was the podcast we were on December 6th. So,
but you guys had definitely had said some stuff, and I remember you had a really cool origin story for getting involved in the project.
well, yeah. So I've always been an artist. I've always drawn. I've always done all that stuff. And the last couple of years, I kind of sort of lost the creative, spark, the creative motivation. And my cousin was like, well, why don't you come to Comic-Con? Because New York Comic-Con is a big thing and you can get inspiration and start drawing again. And so I went to a whole bunch of the creator connection panels. And I met Buddy and he was like, well, you seem like you're really on the ball. Like, why do you feel like you can't create? And I'm like, well, I have this and that. And he said, okay, I challenge you to make an 8-page comic for next year's Comic-Con, which I was like, okay. So I worked as a project manager previously in a lot of different avenues. And I went home and I made a schedule and I sent it to Buddy. I'm like, does this look accurate? And he was like, wow, this is really good. Do you mind if I share this with other people? And I said, no, not at all. And so from that, we edited the schedule and we created a challenge and put it out to anybody who wanted to join, create an 8-page comic book by the schedule or whatever. And we kind of sort of led people through it. Like how to create the comic and what steps you need to take and putting together teams and built these forums. Unfortunately, 2020 happened, like it does. And I had to go back into project management, which just kind of kills my soul. So I ended up being an editor and helping other people and building this community more than I did the comic, which it's all like it's amazing the work that everybody's done. But yeah, we basically it's going to be out on the 29th. We're going to do a live stream at that time and sort of announce everything and try and get some of the creators on. But basically, it's been working with Buddy and several people in the community to make this book. So there's a lot of really good content in there. So.
And can you just explain the comic book connection that Buddy does at New York Comic Con?
Oh yeah.
And no one understands how important it is.
So Buddy worked in comics, and I mean, if he was here, he could give you the whole spiel. He's a charismatic salesman. Let's just say that. But basically what he does is he does a lot of sort of instructional panels, like how to promote yourself on social media, how to put together a comic, the pieces and parts that you need. But he also does a creator connection panel, which is just networking. So he gets artists and writers and says, okay, everybody, interact, and writers on this side, artists on that side, one-on-one. It's like speed dating for comic book artists. And so you just meet a ton of people and they're like, oh, well, I'm a writer and I have these 2 projects, or, oh, and I'm an artist and I'm looking to illustrate stuff, and people get together and make comics. The one problem with that was that over time, Buddy saw a lot of people meet up and the connections were made, but the comics weren't getting made. It was always like, okay, well, what did you leave off last year? Well, I was going to do this. Okay, well, did you do it? No. And so that's where the challenge came from. It was like, okay, well, now we're in a community. Now we're all at home. We have these online links. Let's get together on the comics and follow up on each other and hold each other accountable to getting these things done. And it resulted in this anthology. So,
it's funny that people, obviously 2020 has been absolute crap. No one's going to fight you on that. But what I have noticed about 2020, and what I noticed as an editor, and I'm wondering if you noticed it too, Aaron, is that as soon as things really got crappy, everyone, Marvel and whatnot, they're talking about pencils down and all that kind of stuff. But I actually became a lot busier.
Yeah.
Because suddenly people are coming at me going, I got this book I want to make. I want that book. And I didn't have time for my own stuff because so many people are coming at me going, I want to make stuff now because
That's
I know
exactly
I can't sell.
Yeah,
and so, people, obviously it's so, the thing is, it's so easy to see the shitstorm that is 2020. But I think we need to look back and see all of the good that came out of it, because there certainly was some good that came out of this. And I would say for that, the vast amount of comics that were made, the fact that in October, Kickstarters were up by 200%. They doubled the amount of Kickstarters that had happened the previous year, which is just ridiculous and unprecedented. So, I mean, from that standpoint and with that challenge there, there was certainly some good that came out of it in my mind.
Yeah, I completely agree. Because so many people were working from home and they didn't have to commute, or, they had their kids nearby and they maybe didn't have to pay for daycare. A lot of people were complaining, oh, I've got to take care of my kids, I've got to do the schooling or whatever. But the costs for that were down for some people, which was nice. And there were weird expenses this year anyway, but that gave them, time and a little bit of extra money to put to boards, to drawing, to writing, to, getting together with people online and making these collaborative projects. So yeah, I saw a lot more of that too.
I do want to mention, and sorry, I've been here the whole time, guys. I didn't go anywhere. We were having problems with comments coming over, and I hate looking down and not looking at you guys when I'm doing work, so I just mute myself and take myself off the camera. What became of this challenge became almost a support group, wouldn't you say, Aaron? Like we got to meet every month, and we were talking about what was going on in our lives as everything unfolded. As we saw our industry look like it came this close to disappearing on us. And then it was the voice of the independent creators that would not be snuffed out. It was the independent creators who rallied back, like Chuck said. I always say this is, and Chuck knows this because me and Chuck talk all the time about how the struggles we have and stuff that doesn't even make the internet. This has not been what I would call a banner year, a good year even. I'm not even an okay year. But he's right. There's been so much good things that came of it. And one of the good things that came of it was comic book school. Being able to meet with you guys, get to know you guys. And Aaron knows that I showed up and I was kind of like, hey, I know how to do a lot of this. If you need help, let me know. And, you'd be surprised how people are intimidated to come ask you for help. Aaron always did. Whenever Aaron had a question, she would come. It was like open arms. But some people still at that mindset when they show up. Like she said, no one knows how to navigate. And we're doing a lot of that with the Terraform Continuum, where when people are coming to be part of that project, we want to help them negotiate contracts. We want to help them talk to artists, sit down in a room and have that middle person who helps them talk. Because it's like when a boy meets a girl and they're talking to each other, no one knows what to do. And I'm using this as an example from my own life. Everyone's awkward, and we want to get rid of that awkwardness. Having that third person who knows what they're doing. When the artist goes, I get $300 a page. Dude, you ain't done sequential yet. Calm down. Do sequential work. Show us what you can do. Start it at the moderate rate. You need that sometimes. Someone who can help people really be able to have conversations with themselves. You need editors. Aaron was big with doing editing on the project, and I know Chuck is the huge help he has been, and he knows how much I appreciate all the help he's done in my career with the editing. So I think if you're not editing something, you're not taking it serious. It's just that simple. I've had these fights on social media. If you're not hiring a professional editor, and it has to be someone who is professional quality, whether they charge you or not, I don't care. They have to be able to have the snuff. And I fight with Chuck all the time about editing. I always make the joke he's at the bar on Friday night when we're in the middle of a project because he's drinking.
I'm drinking because I'm editing.
All week I've been pushing on him because I do, and I stop and he knows I'll stop and say, read it out loud. And sometimes he's like, yeah, I can hear it, but you have to understand it's not written right. So some people might give you, some problems over it. And I'm like, I don't care about the problems. I care about how it's read. And I like to use commas in a way that Chuck's like, you're really not supposed to use them that way. So I use commas to kind of teach a person how to say what I mean. So instead of a ramble-on sentence, I put a comma when I want them to take a breath because I would take a breath there. And he's like, you can't do that. I use capital letters to emphasize words. He's like, that's not what that's for. He's like, if I make them bigger, if I make them all capitals, it's like I'm screaming, Chuck. I don't want to scream at the person reading it. He's like, fine, whatever. It's like, you do what you want.
The way you use commas, dash. A dash is what you're looking for. Just a little, like, hey.
I'm not cooking.
A dash is what you're looking for.
Well, and it's funny that you guys say that because one of the things that I've noticed, especially with, brand new people on a comic book or especially in the anthology, there's people who have done, I've done one or two, or I haven't been published, or I've been working in a different, like a sister industry. And they do sort of come like very tentatively with questions like, well, I'm not a professional. It's like, okay, there's nothing wrong with not being a professional. Professional just means you haven't been paid yet. Like, it's okay to be a novice. It's okay to be an amateur in, a new field. And So a lot of people, I think, felt very tentative and very nervous about putting themselves out there. And then you have sort of the opposite end of like, okay, I'm here, here's my book. It's perfect. I'm done. And it's like, well, no, let's take a look at it. Let's go through it and read it and make sure it's saying, what you want to say. And so there was definitely sort of a meet and sort of figure people out and putting sort of some bombastic people with some sort of more timid people. The teams and the friendships that came out of this anthology and this challenge are amazing. Like half of the people I haven't met in person, but from interacting online, I feel like they've been my friends of mine forever, so it's really a neat community.
And we're getting someone chiming in now. I want to give a shout out to Mike. Mike actually got The Advocator, which is an anthology that me and Chuck worked on in 2019. And he went through every story and gave some feedback about every story that he read. I've never seen anyone do that, and it's greatly appreciated. And I will be tagging the entire team for The Advocator. For some reason yesterday, Facebook, to go with the technical issues, wasn't allowing me to tag anything. Couldn't figure it out. I don't know why. I was trying to tag Chuck and Travis in the group. No one let me do anyone. I did see that you saw it, Chuck, so I knew I didn't.
I did, and we talked about it because it was really cool feedback. It was really nice of him to be able to check it all out. Like we don't want to say this is my fan, but certainly he's been really cool about picking up everything that I've done and whatnot. And so when he saw that those were on there, because he kept saying, "I want more Welcome to the Void," and I'm like, well, The Advocator is the only way you're going to get more Welcome to the Void until I finish the next issue. And so that was a cool way of him being able to get out and pick that up and also get to see a whole bunch of other indies because he came in through Xenoscope and then started doing a deeper dive and somehow he got down to me and then because I'm a part of a lot of stuff, he ended up checking out a bunch of stuff and look where we're at, so yeah, it's awesome.
Now, what's really cool about that is the fact that he got to see all these different characters. One of the things that the reason I was on The Advocator was always to help other creators. I thought it would be a great way to do that. And, we're taking a lot of what I learned with The Advocator and putting it in the Terraform Continuum, and we're just adding in steps to it that, we're doing the control. We're having more editorial control. It was one thing, Advocator, I don't think we ever had editorial control on anything other than our own stories. That was one thing that I always felt like I could help these people if I just was allowed to have that editorial control. But a lot of times we were given a finished story. I mean, Chuck's there in the background where I'm like, hey, there's this error. Do I really want to try to get them to re-letter this, or do you want me to just fix it? And we fixed it on our own because it was a glaring error, and we actually reached out to the creator and told him, hey, we fixed this for ours. You should fix it for yours. And you'll never be able to know because I'm good like that. You'll never see what I changed. And I changed it because I have the skill level. And Chuck was like, oh, you can really letter. I never knew that. I was like, you looked at all my books. What are you talking about? I said, yeah, but you don't letter this. He's like, you should try lettering more like that. And I'm like, thanks for being my editor, Chuck. By the way, good editors.
I do, but I'm not giving you their names.
No.
But
so, Rob, could you explain a little bit more about Terraform Comics? Because you said it a couple times, and I watch your stuff, but I just want to sort of know the whole story there.
Well, actually, I'll let Meredith tell this story. She's been a little quiet today, and I'll tag her in because I know she loves the spotlight, and I know that she just loves when I do this and put her to explain things. She turns bright red.
What are you doing to
That's
me?
what you got for the earlier comment. You thought I forgot about the earlier comment, but no, it came back to haunt you.
Where did you even get a name like Terraform Comics? Because that name is brilliant.
Yeah, it's okay. Someone stroke his ego and let it. For those who don't know, Chuck was involved in a really good idea and decided to walk away. Oh yeah, he left a name behind, Terraform. And
I did.
I've been against it the whole time, but I found a way to make it dirty in the future, so I'm good with it now.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But go ahead, Meredith.
All right. Well, Terraform Comics is it is a publisher, and we are by creators for creators. I mean, we're really coming at it with the perspective of being a creator, going through the process and things like that. And we've had a couple of trip ups and things, but we have pivoted to kind of focus at least the very beginning of 2021 for Terraformed Continuum, which is not to say the dirty word anthology because it seems like it's overused, but essentially that's what it is. And we are inviting creators to come in, collaborate with each other, work with each other, when it comes to taking this small group and helping other creators grow and develop their skills and even branch out. So for me, I write prose. I'm learning scripts, and I've actually submitted a couple of stories that need to go through the process. So it goes through the writing room. We have a couple of people who are taking on the editing role, and they're looking at that and whether or not it's accepted, or we send it back and say, hey, can you work on this? And it's up to the creator. Same thing with art. Same thing with lettering. The whole process, if we decide that we're going to, if somebody wants to do coloring and stuff like that, it's like, hey, I think I want to try flatting. I think I want to try color or lettering. So it's this whole collaborative effort that is Continuum. And by doing that, we are building a big library where we're allowing the people who participate in that to take those books and print them a little bit over cost, but they'll be able to have a bunch of books at their table when they go to a con. So you don't have to have just that one-off if that's all you have. By being a part of Terraform, you have access to the catalog that we're building. Rob, did I miss anything?
A few things. They're not going to print it. We're actually going to print it.
We are printing it, yes.
And we're keeping the rights to. Unless we get involved in the actual creation process, like we'll help with editorial. We'll help with looking at the scripts and actually editing and making sure. But unless we create characters, we'll never have ownership in it. What we do is we keep the ownership to print the story within the confines of this Terraform Continuum. It'll be ours, but only for that. You can use it any way you want going forward, including putting it in a comic book. I think it's really cool to actually launch comic books using this. The idea is to make a library. And it all comes from the same conversation that the creators who've been around at least 5 years have had. Wouldn't it be cool if we all got together and just started making stories and had fun? If we just put our stuff together and we didn't worry about it, and we just made a library of awesome creators coming together. That's the goal. It really is. And we haven't officially announced this, but we've talked about it. And I want to stress Terraform is the company which says, no ego. It is literally founded on the idea that egos kill comics and kill creation. So there's no ego allowed, like Meredith was talking about, So what we're talking about is doing this with a no ego attitude, which is making people aware of what they're doing. And they get to make the decision. We'll just turn down a story. We're not going to hurt them and call it crap. We'll just be like, hey, this is why we don't like your story. If you make these improvements, you can move forward with us. If you don't want to, that's fine. You can do it on your own. And it gives the creators that choice. We don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. We want to not hold hands because we want people who are serious. And I say that all the time. I want someone who really wants to create. And if you're wasting my time, you'll get the short answer. But if I think you're actually putting the energy in, you'll get all my time that I can give you.
Well, but I wanted to piggyback off of that too. Just because you submit something and just say, we have some things that we would like to see fixed. If you can come back and say, well, there's a reason why, we're going to sit down and listen. It's not going to be like the end all be all.
Yeah.
So that and again that's that whole collaborative. We want to make you a better creator. We have opinions, and they're going to be subjective. And it's up to the creator to say, hey, I see where you're coming from, but this is why I did that. It's like, okay. Or it's like, oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, let me go fix it. So they have that option.
And it's not just going to be open to new creators. And one of the things that I really like that we're going to be doing is and these are two things. One has never been announced, but I told Meredith I'd actually talk about it this Sunday. The other one we did announce this week, so Michael knows about. The first one that we're announcing after Christmas, because you don't do anything before Christmas at this point. You don't put out an official release before the holidays over. By the way, happy Hanukkah. because Hanukkah is going on right now. Happy Hanukkah. I haven't said it on You're Not Alone, not on purpose. My son is from the genetics of Jewish people, so I am aware. I just honestly, it's 7 days, and I just forget to sometimes say it every day, and I mean to every video I start, so I apologize for that. But back to the Terraform Continuum. We're going to allow people who did past anthologies, if they're 1 year old and you have permission from the original anthology, to reprint to put it into our catalog. The reason that that's important is that you might have been an anthology that did nothing. Plus, you might not be able to get copies. We're going to continuously have these books available for you guys. That's going to be now part of a giant library. My goal is 100 issues right now. That's the short-term goal, is 100 issues. That's what I think of. I want to make 100 issues of this. When you join us and you have a story in just one issue, you're able to buy anything from the catalog. Now, it doesn't sound like a lot when you haven't released your first issue, but in 2 years, when we have 10 books, imagine being the new creator who puts a 4-page story out and then can go to a con with 10 books to sell at his table. Imagine how that changes the narrative of his ability to be at a table, because now he has a pre-packaged, and he can do it because he's part of it. He is now officially a member of that, and he'll continue to be it. And we've said it. Look, if someone turns out to have done something bad and we didn't know about it during the time, we're not going to, we'll put out a statement that we didn't know about that and that's it. We're not going to throw them under a bus or anything like that. We're just not going to have them in reprints, and we'll just take it out of our library. We might get some bad people over the journey. We're talking about 100 issues, but more importantly, we're going to get a lot of great creators. We're going to get people who are excited about creating, who want that opportunity to be part of something. This is something that, as far as I know, has never been attempted. It's never been even thought about in this particular way. It's things Chuck has heard me talk about, with some of it being from the Advocator. So to Chuck, not a lot of this is new. It's things that actually, honestly, got shut down in the Advocator meetings. It was things that I was told, oh, we can't do this, we can't do that. And adding to that idea that we can't do this and we can't do that, Erin knows this because I've been talking to her about this. We're talking about making comic strips part of Terraform Continuum. So we will allow people to actually put in comic strips. Now, everyone else will be compensated for their work as we do a Kickstarter for every issue, and they'll get copies based on how well we do in the Kickstarter, same as we did at the Advocator, with the one exception of anyone who delivers a one-page story or a comic strip will get 2 copies. They'll be able to buy as many as they want, but as a comp thing, they'll only get 2. And the reason is you're putting in a lot less work than everyone else. And it's just trying to keep things fair. Bare minimum to be cut in, you have to have a 4-page story. The maximum we're talked about right now is 10 pages. I don't think we'll go past 10 pages, because then if you're past 10 pages, you might as well just put out a comic. Do a little mini comic, past that, it's ridiculous. We had one Advocator where literally it was 12 pages and I felt like it was just too much. And by the way, 10 pages has to count with credits. So you really only have 9. So keep that in mind. But we want to open the door. It's about creating. And I say it all the time. Who wants to put all the bullshit away and just make comics? Make something you're proud of and be with people. That Advocator, that proved it to me this weekend. Everything I said about the Advocator while I was on the road, and Chuck seen me do it. I think Meredith's even heard the pitch. It is that powerful, because in that time when Michael talked about all those different creators, they all got sunshine. They all got sunshine on a day they didn't expect it. It works. It works. And it's going to change part of the industry. And that's my goal. My goal now at this point in my career is to begin to change the industry for the better. To leave my footprint. I'm never going to be Stan Lee. There's no chance to be Stan Lee. I'm not going to be Jack Kirby. You know what I can be? I can be Rob Anderson. And that's my goal. I plan to be Rob Anderson, and I plan to change the industry for the better. So that's it. That's the Terraform thing. And I'll be honest, and Aaron's probably going to notice this, a lot of that I learned from comic book school. There wouldn't be a Comic Book Advocates without that. A lot of these ideas have gotten from that. Am I going too long, Chuck? I see Chuck going like this. Wrap it up. No, I'm kidding. I know. Your hand hurts. I just wanted to pick on you.
No, you know what? I'm being really nice. I'm rubbing Wendy's feet because I woke her up, and so my hand was starting to hurt. Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to pretend to be a good husband.
Yeah. So no, but I mean, it's exciting. It's Chuck knows how much I've always wanted to help the industry, and that all comes from Buddy being that shining light. And at one time, he was the only beacon. Honestly, he was the only guy I could say was doing it for free. He didn't come up, he didn't pitch his book, he didn't try to sell you something. He told you, yeah, I'm a creator, I have stuff too, but hey, here's all this for free. He didn't tell you about having to buy his book, having to subscribe to his site to get information. He gave it to you. And I sat there with the notepad and I took notes for days.
Well, and that's the great thing about Buddy is that Buddy will say, yeah, I've worked in the industry. I've done this. Like I've written for Deadpool. I've done all these books. But at the same time, the first thing he says is, what do you want to do? How can I help you create what you want to make? And that's not something that I thought I would experience when I went to Comic-Con for the first time. I mean, you know, everybody's trying to sell something, but Buddy's trying to sell you. And it's like, where did this guy come from? He just wants you to be able to create your dream, your vision, your comic, you know? And he actually, when I went to some of the Creator Connection things, like he said, hey, are you around tomorrow? Come by my table. And he sat me down and literally one-on-one, I'd never met him before that, right? One-on-one said, how do I help you create what you want to create? Like just like a complete mentor, day one. And so, yeah, a lot of the stuff that you're talking about does sound a lot like comic book school, but I'm kind of happy that you're doing it. It's like, yes, let's do more of these. Like the anthology is such a great thing. Let's do more and get to more creators and get more comics out there, because I've read some of these comics now and I'm like, I would never have thought of this. This is amazing. The story is great. These characters are great. Like where did you come up with this? Like, and if it gets more people making them, if it gets more people to have a community and a team to be able to say, oh, by the way, I do need help with this. And 4 people go, okay, what do you need? Like, yeah, let's get on it.
And we need that right now. We need more buddies in the world. And I don't think I've ever lived up to being a buddy. I've always advocated my own way. I can't do it his way. And that's the whole thing. We're never going to be able to do it his way. Meredith had smartly told me recently, when I'm getting busy with comics, it's a good thing. And Chuck knows this. But when you start getting busy, you have to start making, and I've had the talks with Chuck too, you have to start making those decisions of how much more you can do for other people without it hurting what you're doing for yourself. Yeah. You know, I'm a single dad. You know, I've got the back issues. It's not always easy. So I try to do what I can to help other people. He's been doing it for over a decade. He's been one of those people, and you take what you can and then you make it your own. And if I inspire people to, like Meredith had said, and Varian was in the room too, and he said this, it's like, you don't understand, when you're in the room, no one's going to try to compete with you. When you step out of the room, it'll give room for other trees to grow. Kind of like the comparison in the forest, a giant tree blocks the sun from a small tree. A fire burns down the forest, and suddenly the new trees come up. And sometimes we have to be aware of that. We have to give the room to all these other creators to grow. And when we were talking about this, one of the things that I do regret with being part of the 8-Page Challenge is I feel like I should have gotten more involved, and instead of just waiting to be asked, be more involved so I could have helped and given information. Because I'll be in the middle of the meeting and start rattling things off, and I realize, like, maybe this should have been done outside of a meeting, you know, because I'm just sitting there figuring things out. And I'm like, I could have said all this if I was paying better attention and not just waiting for someone to tap me on the shoulder. So in the next round, I'll probably pick a more active role. I was trying to I want to do the Batman thing, you know, the cool thing in the shadows. Call me when you need me. You know, it doesn't always work out that way. You know, not everyone's eager to call someone. Sometimes they don't know when to call. I forgot about.
And then we were sitting in the meetings like, how do you turn on this bat signal? Like, where do you? I don't know how this works.
I'm all over the place. It's not hard to find. I have people sending me notes. Please stop being on so many videos. So, but for Chuck, what has it meant to you to be part of these things, like The Advocate or these shorter stories? How important have they been to the trajectory of your career?
Huge. I mean, honestly, huge. You're getting out to so many different audiences, first off, because you never know where it's going to go. Like when it's your book and you're early on, you know exactly who's picking it up. But when you're a part of these, you know, you'll get random people coming up and saying, "Oh, dude, I read your short in this, and I really like that." And you're like, "What?" Like, I did a short for Antarctic Press, and I was told, "Oh, when it goes into print, we'll let you know." Well, no one got in touch with me, and all of a sudden, I got tagged on Twitter by someone I didn't even know, and it turned out it was a reviewer. And they tracked me down on Twitter, and they reviewed that anthology piece, and it was a really glowing review. Like, it was amazing, but that came out of nowhere. I didn't even know the book had hit stores. Like, I didn't have a copy. I wasn't able to go pick it up or order it. And so, yeah, man, that kind of stuff is huge. Also, it's a challenge. You know, I hear this so often. People will go, man, I want to make this 100-page epic. And it's like, yeah, what can you do with 4 pages? Well, that's not enough. Then maybe you're the problem. Like, I get that you've got these really cool big dreams, but if you can't kind of coalesce and create something small and interesting too, then maybe you need to understand that's a challenge you need to undertake. Because what you're doing, like, it's easy to create a 100-page epic, but creating something that's 4 pages or 2 pages or 1 page that's really interesting and exciting and that people want to read, that's tough. And I think that what people forget in comics that's so important is every once in a while we have to shut up and let the in-between panels talk, and let other things kind of speak for us. And we need to be we need to under-explain things and allow the artist to explain rather than having tons of words and all that kind of stuff. So being able to do those shorts, it really challenges you in a different way, and it allows you to work out different muscles so that you can really kind of play off of this stuff and hopefully take it into those bigger 100-page epics and whatnot.
Yeah, and like I said, look at the detail. This is someone who can help careers. Just someone being an advocate right now. They saw something, I'd ask them, I said, just give me some feedback. And this is the feedback he gave. I cannot go over that. And even reading things about my own work. And what do we got in this? This one for the summer edition, I was here. Monster Cosplayer. Oddest story of this issue, which, believe it or not, that's a badge of honor. That's a nailed it moment for me. Like, I'm proud of that. But it works. 3 comics are kind of sort of showcased all together. Well worked. And to me, that's a win. That's the ability, and that's exact, because that actually, and Chuck knows this, it was an actual ad for the Advocator. The entire purpose of it was to show the power that the Advocator could do. We have something about Link, Belial, Chuck, and Sean opened a whole world, a whole lot of the indies to Trish and me through Belial. And from the page 1 Virgin cover in the issue, I was so excited. Heard Chuck tell a story one time, and now I see their story makes to print. I am a Link fan. And that is saying a lot because I do not normally back cute secondary characters. Sexy, yes. Cute is for Trish. So that's a huge thing. That's even something like, I don't know, a guy named Rob's been telling Chuck all the time that he's writing about the wrong character. Forget the get onto the Link series. I mean, just cancel Belial, get to Link. Link kills Belial, end of Belial 3.
They always want you to write the story that you're like, that's a throwaway. This is my epic. And no, that one.
You know what, actually? I would love to write Link, but for me, I'm very much I have to finish this before I do that. So Belial is a 4-parter. I need to finish those 4 parts, and then when I do, we can talk about Link. And trust me, that stuff is very much on the table.
Well, and going back to what you were saying about like the 100-page epic, mm-hmm. I feel like, especially after talking with all the people in comic book school and doing the anthology, like we cut it. It's 8 pages, right? There are so many people that are like, I'm going to do this big, huge thing. And it's like, okay, what are you going to start with first? Like, can you do a 100-page epic? Or have you never done 1 page? Like, you got to kind of start small and do the learnings, or the 100-page epic is going to come out like poop because you've never done it before. And it's such a massive undertaking that, like, okay, don't start with, the thing that's going to define you, the thing that you love more than anything, because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to mess up. There's going to be things you need to learn as you go through the process. And so start with, a knockoff story, like, oh, I had this little thing that I thought I'd just write, a page. Or, oh, there's this guy who's doing a comic and I thought, oh, I'll just illustrate these 8 pages or this, 10-page. So that you can gather all those learnings. So when you do finally get to your epic, you understand the process and you've gone through all the little mistakes. So it comes out that much better. You're well practiced. You have a network of people behind you because these are the people I can trust because I've been through, all of the slugging details with them already. And so I think there's a lot of people who want to jump in and make their thing, but start small, keep it simple. They get the learnings, and then you can make your big, 100-page, fantastic comic book.
And I wanted to add something about that. Like, C. Michael Lanning and I, in the Terraformed Continuum group, we were talking about it, and he throwing around ideas and stuff like that. And so he sent me the ideas that he was thinking about. He's like, I kind of want to draw this. And then based on that, I wrote a story. It was just like, well, actually, I've written a couple because it could be an epic. I see this as being a series or just, a graphic novel. It's just the potential behind the story is so good. But then Rob was like, you only need 4 pages. I was like, oh, thank God. Because not only because of, and Michael, I'll let you talk about the art behind it, but like the story itself is like, well, how let's introduce the characters. And this is the perfect forum to do that. And so let's just do a quick story that serves that purpose and hopefully gets you engaged so that you want to see more.
Yeah, absolutely. Doing the 4 pages because I just came off of doing my first issue, so doing the 4 pages with the deadline that we have was definitely a blessing, believe it or not. So yeah, it's been fun. But listen to that, I had taken a Gotham writers course some years back. And the teacher in the course had made the statement about her students, not necessarily there, but she was also a writing teacher, about how the students would come in thinking that they were going to have to write a whole bunch. This is going to be a whole lot of writing. And then she comes out with, write me a short story that's 500 words long. They didn't realize how hard it is to put out something short. And there's such a craft into putting out something short because what you have to convey something in such a small amount of time. So it definitely helps to exercise that before moving into something huge.
Every way that you can challenge yourself is huge, and people don't get that. Like, you don't want to start on your 100-page epic because you're not strong enough of a creator yet to do it. You haven't learned the lessons. You haven't flexed the muscles. You need the abs. You need all that stuff. Like, you need to be set and ready to do that. And a lot of these short challenges, they help you a lot. That Antarctic Press thing I was talking about earlier, I have a fun story with that. The guy got in touch with me at dinner time on Thursday. It's important, the date. So Thursday at dinner time, he gets in touch with me. He's a buddy of mine from cons, and he says, hey, man, I want to get you your first credit for Antarctic Press. What can we do? I said, dude, we could do whatever. Why don't you, because he's a good buddy with them, why don't you contact AP and ask what they want from us, and we'll just make it. And that was me already opening myself up to a challenge. And he's like, okay, great. So he gets back in touch with me, and he says, all right, well, it's kind of a good news, bad news scenario. So they want us to do a 4-page sci-fi short. Cool, no problem. Love sci-fi. I'm totally down for that. He's like, okay, they want it by Monday. And I was like, what, like my script? And they were like, no, they want the whole thing done by Monday. Can you do that? And I was like, I'm a writer, dude. What do you mean, can I do that? You're the artist. Like, you're the one that's going to get wrecked. And he's like, well, yeah, I guess it depends on when you can get me the script. And I said, I'll literally stay up all night tonight until the 4 or 5 pages is done. I'll get you exactly what I think will do great for you, and then you can go from there. And he's like, okay, cool. Then, yeah, it's doable. I said, all right, well, what about colors? He's like, well, colors will add too much time, and we don't have anything like that. We don't have any kind of budget. I'm like, okay, cool. What about letters? He's like, yeah, I don't letter. And I don't know that we have time for letters, so I don't know what to do there. And I said, okay, cool, perfect. I'm going to write a 4-page short that's silent and black and white. And he was like, can you do that? And I'm like, well, we're going to find out, aren't we? And I did it, and it was so much fun. Being able to, and we got it done by Monday. They got it like Monday evening or whatever, but they said Monday, and they got it. And we did it, and it came out really good. I'm super proud of that piece. And so any time, instead of, I find people look at rules and they go, oh, that's just bogging down my creativity. No, man, it's stretching your muscles. Yeah. It's forcing you to learn to fight in these little constrained corners. Because the thing is, As much as collaboration is also really cool and a lot of fun, it does kind of hold you in a little bit because you're working within other people's areas of comfortability as well. And so you have to be used to being able to pivot in this industry and try new things and play with new things. And so having to suddenly write something with zero dialogue was huge. Like, how do you do that? How do you make that interesting and exciting? And so, it was a whole new set of moves that I had to do. And now I can do short periods of time or longer periods of time in a comic where it's completely silent because I've been able to play with that and utilize those skills.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Thank you.
And one of the things I like about this, and Chuck will get the joke here, the black and white with some colors, Many Wolf, black and white with some colors on words, seems lead into the next issue, interesting confusion. And that was actually the entire, if you remember back when I made it, that was the entire point of the story, was to leave the reader confused. And I remember Chuck being like, you want them confused? I'm like, yes. I want them to think, well, what happens next, and actually want to know more about it. Yeah. So I was happy about that one. And
it's funny you say that, because one of the things that I noticed when people have to sort of cut down their stuff, I am very verbose. Like when I write, they're like, oh, we need 500 words. And I'm like, I'm at 2,000. Like, cut it down. But like you kind of learn what you don't need, The first idea when you make a story is, okay, let me explain the backstory. Okay, let me explain the character development. Okay, you don't need all of that. Like making it smaller and cutting it down and cutting it down and cutting it down. People know tropes. They know like stories. Like you're not normally giving this to someone who has never experienced comics before or never experienced storytelling before. And so there's so much that as a creator, you want to stuff in there and you want to get all of your ideas and you want to show the world and show the characters. And a lot of times you don't need it. And so learning to do it small can actually improve on any of your big projects, because you cut out all the fluff that's just going to make readers like, this is so long and boring. I just can't.
Have you ever heard of a drabble?
Yeah.
Drabbles are 100-word stories.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing about that is that what that teaches us like micro editing. You know what I mean? Because every word counts.
Yep.
So most people, like, you're not going to get a lot of people, who are like, oh yeah, I only use 79 words. Like, no, most of those sentences are like 95 to 100 words. Like, everybody's trying to get in there. Because most of us end up going over and then having to pare down and really work it. It really helps you with editing as well. It kind of helps you to be a little more concise, especially in comics. We have to be concise with our speech bubbles because you don't want to cover up all of that beautiful art. And so doing things like drabbles, again, it's flexing those muscles. You're learning to kind of be more concise and micro edit your own work to really get to the point without having to go way over.
And one of the things we did in the comic book anthologies, we've got 3 flash fiction pieces, which I had never done flash fiction before. And it was a way for me to be able to contribute since I was doing a lot of editing too. But they're so short, but they're just a story. And you're like, it's just a nugget of a story. And you're like, oh, that's so good. I want more. It leaves the person going, when's your next issue? When's your next thing? Like, I want to be involved in this. But they're just these little perfect nuggets of like, here's something just to keep your mind active. Like, here's just a little story. And you read it and you're like, that's fantastic. Like, in itself, it's self-contained. It's just one little piece. And each of ours has an illustration that goes with it. And they're just so good. So.
That sounds great.
I love those 100-word stories. I love writing them.
Right.
Yeah, flash fiction has never been a strong suit for me. It's rough, but
it's difficult.
It's definitely beneficial. That's for sure.
Yeah, like, it would never be something that I would be like, I'm going to make an entire book of drabbles. Nope, not interested. But I'm definitely excited to I would almost say, hey, why not try to do, say, a drabble a week? and work out those muscles and just kind of, really sort of play around. And you'll find that you get better at it. And then those skills move on to everything else that you work on. So, those challenges, finding those things, doing whatever you can to sort of, again, stretch the muscles, all that sort of thing. It's huge. It's so important.
And let me just read Chuck's thing here. We can get it off the screen and actually go back to our regular screen. It's the last one. This is for Chuck. Welcome to the Void. I was excited when I read the first issue of the series, and one of the main reasons I wanted to read The Advocate. And I was not disappointed. A new character and some more story. Why have Chuck and Sean not done another issue?
Well, here is the funny thing with that piece, and that's, again, about challenges. Right away, Travis and Rob came to me and they said, man, you should really try to do a Welcome to the Void piece. And I was like, okay, but guys, I don't have money for art. Like, I can't afford to do any more art. And Travis, in his wisdom, said, why don't you use art that you already have? And I'm like, but it's been used. Like, it's in the book. And so instead what I did was Welcome to the Void is about this other dimension known as the Void, where all creation is formed. And so I did a story from people inside the Void watching the story in the first issue. And so I put those panels and then re-lettered it with the people from the Void narrating what they were seeing happening in that first episode and in the first things that were happening. And that allowed me to look at my story from a completely different angle and, again, flex muscles and play with things that I normally don't. And I can't push this and stress this enough. Being able to be flexible and pivot and try new things. These are all tools in a toolbox. And if you're just sitting down and you're writing whatever the hell you feel like, whenever the hell you feel like it, or drawing whatever you feel like, whenever you feel like it, you're not working any other muscles. You're not creating a bigger, more expansive palette for you to play in. And so I would really say, if you want to get good at anything, start making yourself uncomfortable. Start doing things that are not in your wheelhouse. Work in genres that are not normally ones that you would play with, and see what you can do. Because all of that, you may suck at it, and that's fine. But in sucking, we learn.
Yeah, definitely. And save everything you do. Save everything you do, because that way you can go back because sometimes you don't feel like you're making progress, and you can go back and look at where you've come from. I do that with art all the time. I've got stuff that I had 5 years ago. It's like, man, I don't feel like I'm moving forward at all. Go back and look. It's like, wow, this sucked. So
my daughter's like that. She's 11. She's like, Dad, I'm not getting any better at art. And I'm like, kiddo, you're 11. Like, you don't have a lot to look back on to show you progress. But trust me, you have gotten a lot better, and you will continue to. Save your crap, keep moving forward. You'll see.
The other reason to keep it is exactly what Chuck just said. When you pull something out from 10 years ago and you're like, wow, that's crap. I should redo that. I should take what I've done already and be like, oh my gosh. Like, I have 6, we were pulling old comics the other day, and I pulled out a sketch from like probably 12 years ago, where like it was just this 1-page comic, that I had written of an experience with my dad visiting, traveling somewhere. And I was like, man, that's crap. I could redraw this now, and I could do this, and I could do this. And like all the ideas just started flowing through my head. So yeah.
And being able to honestly say to yourself, I can do way better than that now, it's huge. Then do it.
Yeah.
Like if you still like that idea, go play with it.
Yeah. Well, I have a problem. I will learn something, but I'll forget that I learned something. I have all these rules. I'll have all these rules and everything that I remember and I learned, and then I'll go back and oh yeah, I could do that. I could add this. Oh right, rule of threes. Right. Okay, I can remember all that. So it really helps to advance you completely. It's like cogs in a machine. Every small one has some kind of importance to it.
Yeah.
Why do you guys just keep stopping?
Wait, were you, Rob?
Yeah, we're trying to let you guys have a moment too.
No, I'm loving it. I love the natural conversation. It's like, don't be afraid to jump in. Trust me, there are going to be times where you're going to want to say something. Just raise your hand. That's what we do around the room. Don't feel like you can't jump in at this show. I wanted to talk about the creative experience. This is because we're in December. The specials are better than the normal news. Because we could be talking about Disney right now. We could be talking about this process. And a lot of people can tune into this right now and learn the process and see how we've all learned. See how things like comic book school are so important. Going to these panels. That's why I've done almost 100 panels. If you count the online stuff, I've done 100 panels now. Not for my own thing. There aren't a lot of sales that come from doing panels, guys. From being the guy who's running the panels, you don't get a lot of traction. You do it to give back because there was a point where Buddy did it for me. There's no other way to put it around it. Buddy gave a panel that helped me shape. He doesn't take someone and make someone. He inspires them to make themselves. And that's an important distinction between what Buddy does and everyone else does. Most people want you to buy their book and become a copy of them and do it their way. The only thing that they won't tell you is that their way often closes the door. Instead, Buddy challenges you to be a professional. He challenges you to go the way of your way, but he also wants you to be the best you can be. And that's what I try to do with everything I do, including Comic Book Advocates and us slowly raising the standards for being on the site, doing proper press release, going on the news and telling people we're not there. There was someone who just had a Kickstarter going on, and he wasn't promoting it. He would drop the link. He would show art. He didn't talk it up, and I tried to talk to him about it, and he told me how I didn't know. I didn't know. If people should just back him because they should just back him. I'm like, that's not how it works, man. It's not how any of this works. First off, you sell
yourself.
What?
I said you got to sell yourself.
Yeah, and you could tell he was just talking about other creators. Why are you promoting to other creators? End of the day, I want creators, but I don't want them as a creator. I want them as a fan. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want someone backing me because they think they have to. I've had people, like, when I push a project like The Advocator, they're like, hey, if I don't back this, are you not going to help me? And I'm like, no. But that's how people are. That's how stingy people are in this world. Man, sometimes you fail. Cat Dad and Supermom was a perfect example of a public failure that I would not accept. And despite what everyone said, despite everyone telling me that I should just, give it up or try to do another issue, I was like, no, this is magic. And I knew it was. And it wasn't just magic because of what I did. It was magic because of what Chuck did and Raheel. That three people coming together were able to create something that you don't really see. Like, it was just one of those moments. It was one of those moments. I hope to do it again with issue number 2, but sometimes the right pieces are just in the right place at the right time to create awesomeness. And that's what that first book was. And I took the blame. I was like, it was all my fault. There was a lot going on during the times. A lot of people don't even know this. I was going through custody hearings in the middle of one of the Kickstarters. I had injured my throat very badly during another one. I had to worry about the Advocator getting in the way of a Kickstarter for Cat Dad, so I couldn't promote it because something had happened that botched in the background. It's not important, the whys. It's just I had to be careful, and I felt like I couldn't press the gas on it. And I didn't accept any of that as a failure. I accepted it as that's what happened until now. And that's what you have to realize in this industry. It's all what you did last. And I said this recently where if you're not still creating, if you're not planning to be on projects, then you're not really in the industry anymore. You were in the industry. You're waiting at home for someone to call you. It never happens. And it rarely happens. And yeah, you even if you have Chuck, how many conventions have you been to where you see all these artists who used to work on comics that don't work on comics anymore? I'm not even talking about old people. I'm talking about people younger than me because they don't hustle. They're not trying to make money. They sit there and they do fan art all day because they can make money off of fan art. And then this year we saw, and this is a big reminder, a huge reminder, artists out there, fan art's not the same when you can't get to conventions. And that's just a reality of this year. I have a lot of friends in a lot of trouble who do fan art right now because they can't sell it online. That's something to think about. You can sell comics online all day long. That you can keep doing.
The fan art prints are a con hack. I see them as. It's like you know that these different properties are sellable. You know that you're able to sell them, and you feel like your art is good enough that people are going to want to pick them up and see your version of these characters and whatnot. So you can sell short term at a con, But in something like this, and in the long term, yeah, you were able to draw a really cool Wolverine. That's awesome. But I'm not seeing any sequentials from you. I'm not seeing any of that work. So why would I hire you for a comic?
Yeah.
And so the thing is that all of that is short-term stuff. If you want to be in the comic field and you want to be making comics and getting stories out there and all that kind of stuff, you need to be able to do more than make one pretty picture and sell 1,000 copies of it. And you're not stretching those muscles. You're not doing, you're not challenging yourself. This is a temporary, it's a short-term thing that will allow you to have money at that period of time. But if we're talking about having a career in comics and moving beyond and being able to do all that other stuff, it's not going to help you.
That's exactly right. And you have to look, let me tell you, and this is so important. And I mean, even now, like when you guys see me, because I have ADHD, I'm impatient, and if I don't do something in the background, you'll see me being bored. I hate looking bored on a screen. So I keep up with my work. I do other work while I'm on these, and I don't miss a beat. I've been on 3 shows at once, actually. But don't tell the 3 people running the shows. And the other thumb was up, I promise. You just didn't see it. But the important thing is you have to be humble about the things. Like right now I'm getting notes actually about the 8-page challenge. They don't like the fact that I do capitalization. I love that fact. I think it's like a unique thing to what I do, and I think it makes sense when you're reading, and it adds emphasis on a word. And it's not something I did. This was used back in the day, actually, by other writers. This is not something I created. It's something I took from the past. But you get people who read it, and they're like, oh, no, it's distracting. And I have to remember this, and I need you all to hear this, and this goes back to how I lettered the monsters. Just because you like it does not mean it's commercial. It does not mean it's marketable. You have to understand that's what you like. Are you going to buy yourself 1 million copies of comics to make you successful? No, you're not. So you're going to have to take a step back, put your ego in a box, and go, okay, if they're noticing this, do I want to die on this hill? And there are certain moments you have to sort of realize that. I wanted it in there, especially for the 8-page story, because it was something I'd put in my past works. I had actually started to, and Chuck has seen this, I stopped doing it as much. And what I try to use more now is italicizing certain letters and certain fonts, because you can get away with italicizing a lot easier than you can with the uppercase. And I'm stubborn, but I eventually learned my lesson. And I did that with monsters. I used a whole new format of lettering. That's why a lot of people didn't know I could letter that first read the monsters and all that, because of how unique it was. And by the time I got down to doing other lettering, they're like, why would you do that? I was like, because it was cool. And understand, just because you think it's cool, it doesn't make it right. Doesn't make it something other people are going to think is cool. And I'll even go as far as the first book I ever released, which was Barbara Unleash's first iteration, which was named Fetish Babies. And it still is as a chapter in the book, so that's still the name of the site. I didn't realize this. I put it on, the way I did it was on vanilla background, and the lettering and the coloring of the choices I did were I was like, this is great. I can read this really well. I'm dyslexic. A Harvard professor picked my book up, looked at me as he was flipping through it, and said, are you dyslexic? And I'm like, random? Do you follow me? Because I don't hide it. And they're like, no, there was just a study that came out. And he said that people with dyslexia actually love the way that this is done. This would be perfect for someone with dyslexia to read. So in other words, I just made a comic book for dyslexic people and marketed it not to dyslexic people. It would never be marketed to dyslexic people. I completely screwed up. And when we went back and did Barbara Unleashed, I lettered it the classic way. I took a lot of it out. I got it. That stubbornness gets in your way. Because, you want to be your creator and you want to change the industry. But before you can change it, you have to prove that you can play in it. And you have to embrace it. Yeah, you have to be able to prove your worth within the industry. So here I am, uncapitalizing every single one, cursing out the editorial team. Like, I like the capitals, writing little notes to myself. But you do it because you realize that this is about the fan base, not yourself. Yeah, so don't let yourself get in the way of what you're giving to your fans, because they are your world. And me and Chuck have had this debate, because there's 3 types of people in the comic book industry: people trying to get money, people trying to get fans, people trying to get famous. It just comes down to that. You got to kind of know who you are at your core. Of course, every one of those want all 3, but each one focuses on one specific thing. To me, I want to be read. Every day of the week, I want people to read my stuff. I go on dating apps and I hand people like my books and go, this is who I am. Ask questions later. Because that's it. That's it. You really want to know who I am? This is it. These are my books. This is what I wrote. If you can't figure out who I am by the end of this, then nothing I do will ever help you know that. And we're being joined by someone from the 8-Page Challenge. What's going on, dude? Introduce yourself.
I don't know.
You muted yourself.
Story of my life.
There you go.
Yeah. My name's Phil. I made the Anachronaut Trapped in Time story. That's about all I got.
Well, tell us about you, writer, or you were an artist. Like remember, you're being introduced to an audience.
How long have you been in the industry? What have you done? Tell us about you, bud.
Oh man.
Pretend we're like doing that date thing, and you only have 2 minutes to convince us to ask for your number. Go ahead, no pressure.
Crap. Long walks on the beach, bad horror movies. No. My name's Phil Burnett. I am a perennial, perpetual hobbyist / comics illustrator. I've been drawing comics for 30 years. I've done a couple of small series. The Prospector by Darren Neely, issues 1 through 5, and that kind of stuff, and mostly just my own thing. In the meantime, I'm paying my bills, working as an insurance agent for a company called Knights of Columbus, and artist, writer, colorist for the Trapped in Time story. So wasn't quite expecting to have to answer this many questions. And long walks on the beach. So.
Phil, how did you hear about the 8-Page Challenge? Like, when did you get involved in it?
I every once in a while I get these emails from Buddy Scalera, and he says, "Hey, we're doing an art challenge or something like that." And since it was COVID, and I had been spending about 10 to 12 hours on the road every day because I drive quite a ways away to cover my area for my job. With the lockdown, I had some time on my hands, so started making a point to just take a little bit of time each day to work on some pages, and kind of figured we'd see how it would go. But yeah, the information just came through an email. I talked to my wife about it. I said, "Hey, it's an 8-Page challenge happening. I'd like to do it." She said, "Okay," and kind of went from there.
Cool.
Good stuff. And it was fun working with everybody. I had been hoping to collaborate with someone, but nobody really asked me to dance until I was already out on the floor. So by that point, it was I think it was 3 pages in on my own story, and kind of helped some other people with some breakdowns or some storytelling and some recommendations for what they had going on for their own projects. So Matt Timpanelli's listed me as an editor for his, and then George Dawkins I worked with a little bit for some of his. He had a story proposal that didn't quite get illustrated in time, and then wound up doing one of the flash fiction things, which I did the illustration for that too. So
stuff. That's awesome, by the way.
Oh,
I can't wait for people to see that because it's very good.
I liked it. It was a lot of fun. Good people. So
let me ask you, now that you're coming into this, and this is a good question for everybody in the room. Actually, we can go around with these little stories that we're doing. These and what you call it, an anthology, a collection of stories, or anything like that. When you guys are reading them as fans, what do you guys look for when you go into that? I'm always curious about that. So when we started The Advocator, I was curious about that. Like when you pick up these variety books where there's going to be all different stories, do you flip through the book and look for something that you think you'll like first, or do you start from cover to cover? So I always find that interesting how different people answer this. So I've asked it on the road. So I've seen people flip through The Advocator and stop suddenly. And when they stop, you know they've connected with what they've seen. So you guys ever noticed yourself trying to pick and choose through the menu and read it the way that you think that your fandom will like it? And have you ever been surprised by a story that stood out and you're like, I would have never read that, but I'm glad it was in this book?
I do that all the time. Like everything is visual for me. So if I pick up a book and I flip through it and there's some piece of art or some, page cover or whatever that speaks to me, I will read the book cover to cover, but I have to flip through it first. There has to be one thing that just grabs me. And so, but I usually do it to learn about new artists. Like if I have the ones that I buy, I have the characters that I love, I have the artists that I follow, but sometimes you're like, let's see if there's something different. And so you pick up an anthology book or a compilation book or, any of those and flip through it and you find either one or two things that grab you. And if it really if it sticks in my head for more than a minute or so, I'll get it. And then I'll go through and I'll read it cover to cover and I'll go, oh, I also like this guy. And I also like this woman. And I also and so that's how I sort of pick up new things, new people to follow, new stories to learn. So.
Well, and when you're dealing with a collection like this or any other independent collection, you're dealing with stuff that you wouldn't ordinarily see as well. So you don't really know what to expect. I mean, if you're coming in from something like superhero comics and you pick up a indie collection, and I don't care if you're talking about something from Fantagraphics or XYZ publisher, who's just working out of his basement, you're going to find something that you didn't even know existed necessarily. And that can really open up a person's world for them. So my answer to the question is I basically flip through everything and I'm just trying to find something new. And, it's sort of like watching B movies. You're just going to see things that a larger publisher or a larger production studio would not necessarily want to take chances on, but you're going to find something that you didn't necessarily know existed either. So just my 2 cents.
What I do is about the same thing. I see something that catches my eye, I'll stop and read it. But I also like to go back and kind of force myself to read through the rest of them too, just to see if there was something that might not have caught my eye, but it might have an interesting story to it. So,
it's funny. I'm an editor in everything I do, kind of like it's just always there in my head. And so first off, I'll grab the book and I'll flip through and see if something jumped out at me. That's to see if I'm even going to want to purchase it. You know what I mean? Like, is there anything in there that can just pop and make me interested? If that happens, then what it is I like to go cover to cover. But you have one page to get me excited. Mm-hmm. Because remember, most of these stories are like 4 to 8 pages. So if in one page I'm not like, what happens next? Then you missed the boat. You didn't make it happen. And so I'll, kind of, that one wasn't doing it for me. Flip through, try the next one. And, go as long as I can. And sometimes I might go back and go, let's try to give that one another try. Can I make it 2 pages? You know what I mean? And, I'll tell people all the time, when you're in anthologies, a lot of the times you're looking and you're going, what are the good stories? What are the, which stories aren't working? And, even when they're when your stories are in there, you're looking, which ones are popping, which ones am I enjoying in here? And so, yeah, man, that's kind of how I tend to do it. Like I said, my editor's hat is always on. And so you have 4 pages, you can't screw around, like you can't be like, don't worry. The last page is worth it all. Yeah. Well, you didn't keep me until the last page. So that's an issue.
That.
Yeah.
I hate that. If you can't keep me interested all the way to the end of the story, I don't care what kind of a twist you have. It won't matter. Yeah. You failed. That's just it.
This isn't a 10 episode series where, in 10 episodes, you're like, don't worry, man, if you can make it to episode 3, you'll love the rest of it. And it's like, okay, fine, whatever. But no, this is 4 pages. You have a very small window of time. If page 1 doesn't make me at least go, it's worth looking at page 2, then you lost me. Yeah. So, you can't, with these short stories, there's no room to screw around. You really need to have all cylinders firing, and you need to bring it in and really excite people. And that doesn't mean you need a 4-page fight or anything like that. But it means that you have to intrigue people, excite people, make them interested in the settings, the characters, the story, whatever you can. Get as much of that kind of out there. Hell, I've seen it done with one single image. They don't usually allow splash pages on shorts, but, in indies, sometimes you can do whatever the hell you want. And so I've seen single images where it was just like, I have to read the whole story. Like, that was so well done. And so it can be done. You just need to be up to the challenge.
Mm-hmm. Well, and certainly, Chuck, I would suggest that as an editor, you're probably exposed to a lot more stories that are not necessarily worth that time investment. So you have to be selective with your time, you know?
True story.
All right.
Okay, again, you guys jump on it. Someone say something, damn you all.
Well, see, that's what it's about that whole, you make it into 3 episodes and then it will pick up from there. But you're not writing, you don't write for the 3rd episode, you write for the 1st episode, and then you continue to go from there. And that always aggravates me. Oh, it's going to pay off in the end. But if I got to sit here for 2 hours and be bored out of my mind, it's not worth it to me.
No, you do it from the get-go. You really do. Whether you're talking about a film script or a comic book, you need that conflict in page 1. You need a reason to go to page 2. Otherwise, people are just sort of like, okay, that sure is a picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true. I brought out an audio drama this year, and each season was 20, or each episode is 20 minutes long, and each season is 10 episodes long. So basically, by the end of it, you have 200 minutes, and the first episode really is leading you towards the big reveal was in the end of the second episode. But we had to make that first episode weird enough that you go, okay, I don't know what's going on here, but I really want to know. Mm-hmm. And so we tried to put enough weird in there and tried to put enough off, just stuff that was kind of off and strange and really got people kind of excited so that we could hold them to the end of that second episode and really go, cool, now you guys have a better idea of what's going on and hopefully you're hooked. And so the real hook comes in at the end of episode 2, but we worked very hard to put enough stuff to bring you all the way to that hook.
And
so
go
ahead.
I was going to say it's interesting because there are different, like what you're saying, there are different ways to do things, always. And there are things like hooks. You can leave hooks in the story all you want for later fish to bite onto. That's how you do that. What you have to do is you have to give a story that when the person walks away, they've had an emotional connection to that was just not, wait, what just happened? You want them, like we talked about a little earlier, you want them to think, oh, wait, there's a comic book coming out after this because this is setting something up. You can see the door opening. That's the whole Easter egg at the end of every Marvel movie, right? Then there's a way to tell a story that's a slow boil. The first comic book I ever released, people came back to me if they read the first 2 pages and they were like, well, this is kind of boring. It was a book about fetish. So some people were like, and I was asking as a favor, read this book. And they were like, dude, do I have to keep reading this? It's kind of boring. I'm like, just keep reading it. And Chuck saw this. And then there's a certain point in the story where you're like, wait. And it starts moving faster and faster, and it starts doing that heartbeat thing. And those are harder stories to try to get across, which you have to have good art for. Luckily, in comics, we have art. You have to have the art match the pacing of the story. That's something a lot of people do not do correctly. They just put images in. They forget things, little details. I can't stand with lettering. I do a lot of things that are funky with lettering because I think they're cute. But one of the things I can't stand is where tails go. When someone has a stomach talking in a comic book, you don't understand it's a comic book. I really don't know if this is a character now. It could be a character. Did I just meet the stomach? What does the stomach do? What's his plans? Is he going to rule the world? Don't make the car talk. I love Knight Rider. You son of a bitch. You just made me thought we were having Knight Rider in this. It turns out to be that guy's thing. And the third thing that you have to watch out for when telling a story, God's sakes, make dialogue matter. Do not have every character sound the same. Every one of my characters have a unique tone. I cannot stand characters that are like, hey, John. Hey, Steve. How are you doing? And it's not even that way. It's just the same voice. Because all they're doing is you could tell it's a writer who's just trying to tell you his story and he doesn't care about your time. You have to be
and on top of that, please, for the love of God, in comics, do not write buttloads of text that explain what I'm already looking at in the illustration. I don't need a character to describe the city I'm looking at. Oh, this is the city, and this is when it was built, and this is how it looks. I'm looking at it.
Yeah,
I think there's a Batman writer that does that.
I don't need the exposition of what I can see it
That's
myself.
That's a bad editor.
You know?
Chuck knows this. That's a bad editor because as a writer, you're supposed to write a script that goes to the artist only. They are supposed to be the only one to ever read that version of the script. And I say it all the time. Your artist should be reading more than your reader because your reader is looking, like you just said, I cut so much out of my dialogue once the artist has done it because, and I tell him this all the time, and Chuck knows this, I wrote this for you. I wanted to inspire you. I'm the letterer on a lot of my projects. I get the last say. And Chuck knows, aggravatingly to him, I only send him the script when it's time to actually letter the book, and I've lettered half of it.
Yeah.
Why won't you send me the script originally? I was like, what would you have changed? He's like, okay, maybe not a lot. It's just easier, you asshole. It's just easier. Hey, you make this so hard on me.
Well, and another thing that comes into mind and people forget is that, like, this also plays to the ego of the writer. Because the thing is, it's like you imagine that every little piece of shit that you write is gold, and you need as much of your writing on that panel as possible. No, man, if you can inspire an artist to make a panel where you have to put almost no letters, that's you as a writer doing a good job. And you need to take that as a badge, and you need to take that as a win. So if someone goes, dude, I love this panel, it's absolutely beautiful, it says so much without any dialogue at all. Now, a lot of people will go, yeah, the artist did a great job. No, you did a great job too, because as the writer, you made them able to tell that story without having to use the letter at all. That's huge.
Yeah, that's the collaboration. That's the part that makes it good.
I love what Chuck said, but if you're an artist in the room, everyone close your ears because this will offend the artists. All right, Chuck knows what I'm talking about here. When they come up to you and go, "Are you the artist?" They look at you, and you know if you say no, that look they're going to give you. So what's the line I gave you, Chuck? Let's see if he remembers the line.
No, I inspired the artist.
That's right. No, I wrote the words that inspired the art. There you go, writers. You go out there and you let them know. Go ahead, finish, Chuck. That is just a way for it because I know
that's what it is. That's exactly what it is, man.
I've been the writer, and they go like, "It's like you have suddenly cancer." Are you an artist? No, I'm just the writer. Oh, you have cancer.
Yeah, and don't they kind of look at you like, oh, well, good luck next time, buddy.
and the ego inside of you as a writer is like, I own the IP. When this hits, I'm the one who makes the money. What's the artist get? Whatever I decide, because I'm the damn writer. I am God of the project. How dare you speak to God this way?
Do you know how often I'll get new creators who add me on Facebook and they'll message me and they'll be like, dude, I love your art. You're so good. And I'm like, I'm not an artist. No, I'm a writer, editor. I made them want to make those pictures.
Unfriend.
Well, you'll either get complete silence and you'll never hear from them again, or you'll get someone who will backtrack and go, oh, cool. Well, dude, man, you've got a really good team there. And you know what? Yeah, you're right. I scouted that. I helped make that happen. You know what I mean? So thank you. That means a lot too, because, having an eye for talent and understanding when that talent works with what you're writing is really important. Your favorite artists out there can't do everything. So you can't have them, there's some artists who do amazing fights. But if I brought them into Welcome to the Void, which is a much more kind of chill, slice of life style story, they're going to flounder. And they're going to draw a lot of stuff that they'll be bored with it because that's not the kind of stuff they do. And so it will end up being a lot less inspired and interesting. Whereas there are some artists who really love the subtlety and all of those little pieces. So, yeah, man, I think that being a scout and seeing what people are good at and where they work and where they don't, it's huge. And so that's something to keep an eye on when you're thinking about picking up an artist. Don't just say, oh, you did this one picture really well. No, let me see some of your stuff. Can I see some sequentials? Which is huge, by the way, guys. If you don't ask them for a page of sequentials and you're just like, oh, you did this print really well, you already lost. Either that or you better have gotten really lucky and gotten the one person who just so happened to work for what you were doing.
Also, ask for a finished project. I cannot stress how important that is. Ask for a finished product. Anyone can take out and go, well, this is my version of Ditko's Spider-Man, and I did it my way, and this is how I would have done the panels. Where's your finished work? If you haven't finished work, you can't even talk to me about pro pricing right now. You just can't. unless you're doing covers. And real quick, Meredith, I'll pass it to you 1 second. And also, Chuck, remember from now on, just say, "I am the god of this project. I am the god. I am in control of all the characters. What happens is my choice and mine alone." Go ahead, Meredith.
I was going to say, I'm submitting the 8 pages. I've got the artwork done. The ink is done. It's going to stay black and white. The journey of finding that creator was through knowing what my work was, having a vision in my head, and going to seek them out. I had about 4 or 5 artists that I saw their sequential art through DeviantArt. I did the research. I stalked them on social media. I was like, okay, what's the feedback that they're getting from other people who have worked with them? Have they delivered? And so I was able to do that. And I am so happy with the pages that I've got back. I can't wait until I start working on the next 8 pages in the book, because at the end of the day, it's going to be anywhere from 24 to 28, depending on how the rest of it is scripting out because of his artwork. So we're
Who's your artist?
Antonio Brandão. He is from Portugal.
Cool.
Yeah. And, and so when I started talking to him, I was like, I have a horror. It's kind of got a zombie thing. It's going to have some guts and stuff like that. And he's like, I love it. And I said, yes, I know. It was just one of those things because I did my research. Now, this is my first book. I had 2 pages that I submitted to Luke Stone for Hybrids, and so technically that's my first comic credit. And I am so grateful for that, because it was those 2 pages that spoke to him. And he was like, you know what? Not only is this going to be in the trade paperback, he told me it's going to be in book 6. So it was like, wow. For me, those 2 pages, keeping it tight, having a story and a vision for that, and for it to speak to the creator of that IP means so much to me. I was like, okay, I'm on the right track here. Let's see what I do with this one. I am working on scripts like crazy, and I'm actually trying to letter this book, which I told Rob I would have by this weekend. He's given me that look, which could be a hot mess. I don't know, but I'm open to recommendations and suggestions, and, I'm going to try it, but I'm open to that feedback.
After the abuse I have had lettering in my career, I have waited for the day to be able to shit on a new letterer. And it is here. It is finally done.
I have the broad shoulders. I can take it, Rob.
I will say something that every letterer is going to be very upset with. It is not that hard. It is really not that hard to learn to letter. What the hard part is reading all the books, understanding the space gapping. And no matter how good a letterer is, I go through Marvel and DC books and find mistakes all the time. It is one of those skills that no matter how good you're at it, even art, you make a mistake. A writer, you don't use the right word every so often. No one's perfect. No, remember, we used to do this by hand, and now we're using computer. And now you get people who are like, I can't stand this. You can only have so many words per panel. I'm like, no, I'm just going to tell my artists to draw shorter, smaller, make more room. I'll have plenty of room.
I would actually add on to that, and I would say writing and lettering are easy. Writing and lettering well are not easy. and that's the difference. You get I've heard so many artists, and it pisses me off to no level, where they're like, I can write, why the hell would I hire someone? I'm like, oh, well, I just assumed you wanted a good story. I apologize. I didn't realize. And your pretty pictures are great, and they may make for a cool story, but a good, nuanced, interesting, exciting, emotive story, it won't necessarily come from that. It requires a delicate hand sometimes. And if you don't play with that, and you don't try to learn that and figure that stuff out, and you don't have those tools in your toolbox, then what you're going to have is a really pretty picture book that people are going to flip through and go, that was really neat and pretty, and I liked it. But is it a story where I fell in love with the characters and I wanted to see it happen? Like, I got the sexy books. We all know on Kickstarter and whatnot, sexy books sell. And
they make money. They don't always get the biggest backer counts. We should mention that.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. But yeah, they make money. So I had one of the sexy people get in touch with me, and that's what I call them, my sexy people. And I had one of the sexy people get in touch with me, and this person is making easily it's 5 digits every campaign. Doesn't matter what he's putting out, 5 digits, which to a lot of us is like, wow, yeah, we're not there. But he got in touch with me, to his credit, and he said, I want you to rip my book apart as a writer. Just destroy it. And I said, yeah, okay, I'll do that for you. And I did. And I tore it asunder. And when it was done, he was like, okay, so you ripped me a new asshole. Now what? And I'm like, well, now you're going to take everything I explained to you, and you're going to learn from it. And you're going to understand all these things that I've told you, and you're going to take them into your writing when you move onward, and you're going to make better and better books. And so for a sexy book to make 10K, if done right, it's not difficult. But if you really get an exciting story that is well done and really gets people going and invested in everything, then we're talking you could make 50K, and you could have hundreds or thousands of people wanting to pick up this book because you've created layers and you've made something way more than just it's sexy. Yeah. So, that stuff is so huge and so important, and people don't recognize it, and again, same with lettering. You know what I mean? Like lettering, putting bubbles on a page, easy. I could do it. Could I do it well? Nope. I do understand.
The tails are the hard part.
Yeah, I mean, I understand how it needs to be done, but again, it's being able to actually do it and understand. Well, the bubble should be here because you're moving. You need to move the eye in certain directions and all that kind of stuff, and recognizing that it's more than just going, oh well, a bubble fits here, so I'm going to throw it here. No, well, man.
It's also the artistry of knowing, like, if you have a box, what does that say versus a squiggled line versus a dotted line versus, emphasized text, capitalized text. It's all of those things that make the reader understand this is a whisper, or this guy is screaming, or, this guy is only talking to one person, or this guy is thinking this. There's so many different things that, like, before you go into it, you can say, oh, yeah, I know how to do that. But it's giving the reader the full extent of what's going on that the writer has put together. Like, this is a whisper, this is all of those things that you have to learn over time.
Well, and that's
quick, Chuck. Let me cut in real quick.
I'm letting.
We're at the 90-minute mark. If anyone has to go, we're going to let them say goodbye in just a second because this is where we're at. Meredith, you want to take it to 2 hours today? We'll do some headlines.
Yeah, we could do that.
And anyone's welcome to stay. We're not kicking anyone out of the room. I just wanted. This is the 90-minute mark. Second, since Chuck's in the room anyway, instead of wasting my time, when someone says offset the phrase, do they need to put a comma in front of it and behind if they're asking me to put commas?
Offset
I've never
the
heard
phrase?
it. Yeah, offset the phrase, and it gives me the quotes like we do, and it says with either commas or M dashes, em dashes, which I assume is just a dash. I'm used to Chuck working with me with editing, so like I'm lost by that one.
So, can you give me the sentence?
At the beginning. Oh, the whole sentence? Yeah, actually, I can.
Yeah.
So now you're all going to get to see editing live in action. Wow. Let's see.
Didn't know this was a live demo.
Oh, this is riveting streaming right here.
Actually, I can show the screen too. I have it up in Letterer, so I might as well all look at it together because Chuck actually edited this already. And some of the things are the things that were in his notes that I'm just doing now to be nice. Then he's going to be so mad. He's like, you're changing that stuff after what I've told you? No, Chuck. It's all a lie. Don't trust your eyes. All right, so here we are. We're up here. It's for many of us at the beginning, and I assumed they wanted a comma here, but they said offset, and I've never heard offset. Because down here, they say to offset. Hold on, I'll show you the example of what I'm talking about while I'm confused, because I wanted to learn the language here. They said for this line, which I actually did have commas, you had me pull them out. It will become it will become about what is next. That will shape your creative journey. Every experience in your life, and they said to offset it with commas, so I put a comma here because that's what I remember putting a comma here. Every experience in your life, comma. So I pause. I'd go every experience in your life, and often will. And they said to put a comma there, which didn't make sense to me. That's why I stopped and asked you. Shape your creations. I don't understand that.
Now, sorry, which block is this in? Because I'm trying to bottom one. Okay.
Better now? You need me to blow
Yes. Okay. No. I actually blew up my page. I'm on my phone right now, so that's perfect.
So yeah, they said commas between. Let's see, and I'm literally doing this while we're talking. It says panel 5, offset and often will with dashes or commas, and I hate dashes.
Yes.
Chuck knows I hate dashes.
So, and often will, because when you look at something like that, so let's read that. And that's why it's so important for us to read aloud our dialogue or whatever, we have on the page. Of course, for this, it's narration. When you hear yourself pause when you read it, that's when you go, ooh, I might need a comma there. So every experience in your life can and often will shape your creations. Ooh, that's how we want to say it. So we need those breaths there. So a dash is really good. I know that you're not a big fan of the dash. I like a dash now and then because it does. I find that people's eyes get a little bored of commas. And so many people tend to over comma, so to speak. So a nice dash there kind of really sets it up, and it really sort of it's kind of dazzling, so to speak, because people are like, ooh, okay, he did some dashes. It's why so many people like to use the ellipses, because they think it's dramatic, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, in a sense it is, but you tend to overutilize it. And it's the same as, like, say, overutilizing an exclamation point. Everything isn't exciting. So calm your tits a little bit and, just use a period now and then. Use your commas. But every once in a while, throw some dashes in there, because this is much more, we're pulling away a lot more. Shit like that.
I'll say this.
Speaking to,
Hold on,
just really...
I'll give it to you 1 second. I just have to make this joke. It'll be such a big one for Chuck. 5 years ago, we would have never been talking about me using too much punctuation.
Right? It's so true. It's so true.
Go ahead, Meredith.
Well, I was going to say, speaking to what Chuck was saying, with it's boring and stuff like that. This is not prose, okay? So what you're reading is part of the artwork as well. So you have to make sure that it is interesting to your eye. And when you have these blocks of text, you need those things like the em dashes and the commas and the ellipses and things like that, making sure that, again, when you're reading it out loud, it makes sense
Are they really
for the people who are reading.
Meredith, are they really called em dashes? And I learn shit all the time. Chuck knows this.
Well,
I didn't have the best schooling.
You have the em dash and the n dash. They're
different?
They are two different.
They are different.
My mind's blown. I learned something new on the show today. I had no idea that there were different letter dashes. We're gonna have to talk.
Don't even ask me what they're for, because I forgot. That was like a long time ago. But.
In print, in like printed media, the N dash is a short. It's just like a minus sign. It's a short dash. The M dash is a double.
Longer. Yeah, like the letters.
And it basically denotes. The N dash is usually used for like combined words. Like if you were to say workspace and you were to hyphenate
like it's a hyphen? Yeah.
Right. You use it as like a hyphen. But if you're actually making a pause between whole words, like you're doing here, you'd use an M dash. And that's the differences. One says, oh, I have to separate this word on a separate line, or this is a combined word. And the other says, this is a pause when you're reading.
Listen to her.
Print catalog producer for 5 years. I learned all that crap.
Yeah, and I'm like about 7 or 8 years removed from that. So
I'll say this. One day, me and you, Chuck, like on a 4-page story, I'll write it, get it all done. We'll edit the final edit live, just so people can see what I put you through. No, say it out loud the right way. Like when you're reading that, I'm like, why is he taking an extra breath? I wouldn't have taken that extra breath. I would have powered through the first sentence and stopped here. I don't know why he's making it difficult. Why is this guy screwing with me? That's usually our editing session.
That'd be a really great idea, because a lot of people don't realize how hard editors have it and what they do contribute. So it would be really good to see that kind of thing. Really educate people.
Yes. And I won't do the first draft, because that's just Chuck being like, are you trying? What did you do here? Why would you send this one to me? And I'm usually like, Chuck, you have the first file that I gave you to read. Get the other one from your email. And he's like, oh, so much better. Oh, so this is so
much better. All right, yeah. I can read that.
Charge him double.
Your first draft is not perfect. Don't send it out to 1 million people and be like, read this. Go through it. Like, get a screen reader and have Google read it back to you. That's what I do, because you will be amazed the words you miss. And then when you reread it, because it's already in your head, you just skip right over them. And you're like, that sentence makes, there's words there that are just completely missing that, like, read it over before you give it to someone, because it's a mess and you don't even realize it.
That's huge. It really is. And that's funny. That's something that my partner and we have an audio drama, Essence House, that we're doing. And when we, I think I did mention it earlier, so sorry for the name drop. But what we started doing is when we finish a chapter, because one guy will take one chapter, one guy will take the next, and we'll go like that. And so what we'll do is we'll get together, and rather than me, say, reading his chapter, he'll read it to me. And we can edit, I'll give it a quick read through, and then we'll do a live reading, just the two of us. And in that, we'll rip it apart. And we'll be like, oh, okay, this word, do you realize that you used that same word, 5 times in 2 sentences? Get rid of it. That's just lazy. Let's do this, and that. And, oh, man, that you need a comma there. You notice that breath, blah, blah, blah. And so you really get to be very picky, and you really get to feel out how it's supposed to sound. My wife and I got into a huge conversation about the need for a dash or a comma or whatever when we were working through dialogue. So I was like, that breath in that sentence adds so much more power to what they're saying. And she was like, oh, yeah, I didn't even realize that. And if you just powered through the sentence, it lost so much of that meaning. So, I get wanting to power through and read it, but feeling it when you read it and being able to then write it in a way where they feel it when they read it back, so huge. It really is the technical aspect of writing that so many people ignore.
Well, now there's a whole new format of how things are done because of all the people online and using short-term messages and chats and texts and things like that you get people who read this stuff and they interpret 3 dots differently. They interpret the space between words differently. They'll interpret, like, if you have a dialogue and you have 2 people talking and you have one line and then the next line and then the next line, if you have certain types of quotations or certain types of M dashes, or, they read it at a different speed. They read it at a different context. And so taking into account some of those things makes a whole different book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you have to ask your editor why. So many people just complain to me about their editors. Oh, my editor did this and that. I was like, do you ever ask them why? Does anyone stop and ask why this changed? Like, right now, if this editor who sent me these notes were with me right now, I'd be putting them through the truck treatment. Explain that to me. It makes no sense.
And here's the thing. The editor needs to ask the artist and the writer why.
Yeah, no, that's true. But a lot of times,
this way, and this is how I read it. Is that really what you wanted? Because that's not what's coming across.
It does that. To his credit, Chuck does that all the time. He'll be like, hey, this line sounds clunky. It doesn't sound like you. What happened here? And he'll read it out loud, and I'll be like, well, you're missing this letter and this word. And he's like, okay, that makes more sense. And he knows that I have, and I'm honest. When a lot of times with editors and this, the reason they don't see it, got this version of it, and they're picking a few things out is because Chuck's already edited this. And these are things me and Chuck will be in a room and we'll argue about for a couple of minutes, and I'll be like, I'm doing it my way, it's special. Or I'll be like, fine, Chuck, you win this round. And with Cat Dad, in all honesty, he won a lot of the rounds. I listened to him with that. It all depends on the type of book it is, too. This was supposed to be experimental. This is an 8-page challenge, and I wanted to do things that showed different things. The whole point was to do something a little different because I was in a place I could do something different. While in Cat Dad and Supermom, no, this is a professional work of art. And we always looked at it that way when I started this, because especially when you're writing for kids, you can't take too many liberties. Because it's very important you follow what they do. And with Chuck, that's why he won 90% of it. The things that we fought were usually terms. Like there's this joke I wanted to do, and he said it was over the line, where Elefart looks down at Cat Dad and the original line was, "What's wrong, pussy?" And he's like, "Nope, you can't. Nope, that line's gonna go." I was like, "What? They said it in Looney Tunes." He's like, "Do you know how many letters are out right now trying to ban Looney Tunes?"
Dude, there's blatant racism in Looney Tunes, and the thing is that we're so far removed from it now that we don't recognize it, and at the time it was okay. It was folksy. Oh,
yeah.
No.
They thought it was okay. It was never okay.
Yeah.
But then the other thing is, there's a reason we don't watch Felix cartoons. Because Felix used to go get high.
Yep.
Felix used to get drunk and like hit on like there's so much crap that they were like, we're just writing this. It was just gags to them back then. And now we'd look at it and go, oh boy, no, you can't show this to anyone, let alone kids.
Felix the cat now.
Gotta be careful.
Felix the cat now is just a clock. That's all he is to anybody.
I told somebody the other day, I'm like, oh yeah, Felix the cat. And they're like, oh, I didn't know he has a name. I was like,
You young kids who watch this in like 1,000 years because me and Chuck were on here and you're watching Cat
right.
Dentistry on Netflix, understand we drank out of garden hoses. We didn't come home till the lights came down. No one cared. No one cared what we were doing. They were just
Far
saying,
from the lawn
if we're gonna go back there, we've got a whole another 6 hours of conversation to have.
I'm still learning all the crap I shouldn't be doing. People are like, my older sister will look at me and go, why are you doing that? And I'm like, this is what we always did. She's like, what? And I was like, yeah, you weren't around. You were in the room reading books. This is how we used to do it. It's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I just told you this is how. I don't know any better. No one said I couldn't do it. You're the first person. I don't know how many people have watched and just laughed. Fuckers. But I know you, Erin, you said you had to get going, right? Yeah, so anyone else has to go, we'll let this be the door, and then we'll do a couple quick headlines and be out. Or we'll do, you know what, maybe what do you want to do, Meredith? Headlines or comments? Because I know there's a lot of comments that I haven't been paying attention to. So it's usually Meredith's job. I'll be honest, it's all her fault. All her fault.
No, you know what? We had a really good conversation going, and there was some side chatter and stuff like that. So I think we can go through some of the chatter.
All right, so let's go up, and I'm sorry you have to go, but tell them how they can find, and tell them about the coolness that you are.
The coolness that I am. Okay, I'm cool because Rob says I'm cool, so I'm taking that to heart. I'm at Redheaded Ed at Twitter. I'm a redhead, and my initials are ED, so Redheaded Ed. The comic book anthology, Panel 1 from Comic Book School, is coming out December 29th. It will be free download from the site. We're putting it up on Comixology as well, but that'll be, in a month or so when they approve it. So go get yourself your first copy. There's a bunch of great artists in there, a bunch of great writers, a bunch of great work. Phil's included in it. I'm included in it. And it's going to be a real good read. Lots of new people to learn about. So.
And I thank you for all the help that you did. For those who don't know, she did a lot of the background work that no one ever wants to do. The stuff that I was having my Batman cape on in the shadows going, not me. That was all the stuff that she was doing, trying to motivate people, give them a schedule. I was like, oh, poor girl. She made them a schedule.
And then I tried to hold people to it. That was like wrangling cats, man.
And it's funny.
I don't know who's worse, artists or writers, but trying to keep people on a schedule.
It was like this the whole time I'm watching.
Oh, I know.
And meanwhile, I'm having trouble in my backyard with my stuff, but I could handle it. But she's literally, people are like, yeah, when do we need the script in? And this is literally the thread about like the 5th week in where you're supposed to have art and character designs. She's like, when should the scripts be due? When should the scripts be due?
No, the absolute best one, I think, was we were going into color. And somebody said, hey, are you still available for teams? Like, can we get started now? And I was like,
no.
I'm a little behind the power curve.
It's step by step. I mean, like, it was there the whole time. Like, I was reading it like, oh, maybe I should start doing it this way. Maybe I'm doing it backwards. I'm like, I'm dyslexic. I'm fine. Chuck loves the way I do things.
Hey, you said it, so we're good on it.
All right. Thank you so much for all you've done with this challenge. You made it awesome. You don't get enough credit. Thank you for it. And we'll see you soon. I'm sure you'll be back on another show promoting this. We're going to be promoting this all month. And then the month after, make sure you all get your copy going into 2021. Thank you for being on. And we'll
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. And we're going to continue with some comments as she takes her leave. So Meredith, I'll let you do the comments because I'm busy editing. Apparently.
Oh, yeah, fine. So
I want to make sure this goes out on time. Did you have to say something, Phil?
I was just going to sign off as well.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Thanks for having me on. Very much. You guys have a great day.
Have a good one, brother.
Bye-bye.
Happy holidays. Happy holidays.
Oh, well, he left really quickly. Okay, so we want to
I have nothing to say.
He said bye.
Bye. All right. I guess we're not following him. So thank you for everybody who is tuning in live. We've got Rex Gordon here, Niobe, Nita Lanning, Lisa Malone, Mike James Bangston, Trish Bangston. Thank you for tuning in. Erin, she was popping in from YouTube and I think Facebook, so she was all over the place. She had a bunch of of windows open. Russell Allen, thank you for tuning in. Let's see here. Trish, good comment here. I'm not a creator, but I like backing those that deserve it. So show me something and we can jump on it. Absolutely. That's the thing. Creators, you connect with the people. Your readers are going to connect with things. Aaron Donnelly says, thanks. We appreciate people who want to read what we are creating. The Comic Book School Panel 1 anthology will be available to download on December 29th. Make sure you check it out at comicbookschool.com. Nita Lanning says, we were talking about flash fiction. Small is so much harder. Let's see. Working on writing a comic. Been talking to Chuck and more hopeful than I have ever been. Wrote 24 pages, first issue, and outlined 5 more issues. Way to go, Mike. Keep on going with that. Let's see. Where else? We're just kind of scrolling through some of the chatter here. Trish says, don't give up. Cat Dad and Supermom was amazing. Our daughters who don't read comics said it reminded them of Timmy Turner and they loved it. So that's to you, Rob.
Well, don't worry. We're not giving up. We're full steam ahead now. For those who don't know, it's going to Scoot Comics under Scout, and you're actually going to be seeing some news coming from it in the next couple of weeks. So don't worry, man. We got more coming for you.
Yep. And then Mike says it's great to see the hustle Chuck has when he has a Kickstarter running. Yeah. I mean, those things, you got to keep going full throttle. Otherwise, I mean, if you don't have the energy, why should they, really, you have to give them an excuse to hit the button. Yeah. Let's see here. Okay, from Mike again. I have read comics for a long time and was going to Chicago Con in the 90s before Image. I have always thought the artist on a title could change, but changing the writing made the title so different. Let's see. Doing any part of it well is hard. Steph Wilson teaches every week people to draw a comic character too, but not sure after that any of them could draw an issue. Art is easy. Writing is easy. Good art and writing is amazing and not easy. It's not. And I say the same thing about singing or any kind of creative endeavor. Everybody can do it. You just might not be able to do it well. Rob.
No, go ahead, Chuck, and I'll go after Chuck.
Anything worth doing well, it's worth working at, people. Yeah. That's really what the lesson here is.
And if you're writing down things, just so everyone knows, comics are not fucking storyboards.
Well, yeah.
Rob has issues. It's okay, Rob. It's okay. Breathe.
I'm just making this for my movie. Then go make a movie, asshole.
Yeah, right. Please.
Well, comics are easier. No, they're not.
No,
as much as you have to convey in such a short amount of time, there's no way you could. They're not comparable. I'm sorry. The only thing you can say is there's a panel and there's a drawing. That's it. It's like saying cave drawings are comics. It's not.
Let's calm down with that creator, though. Let me tell you, man, he saved a lot of people because when we ran out of toilet paper.
Wow.
Settle
down, Rob. Settle down. Breathe. It's all right. It's all right, friend. Okay, so tuning in also to the live is Heather Ellen. We appreciate you. Willow Schuyler, thank you. Let me see. Scrolling through here. Willow says, realistic dialogue is important. I feel that it makes the characters more relatable if they talk as if they are actual people. That's what we do. We read out loud and make sure that the commas and the ellipses and the dashes all go where they need to be. And sometimes when you're reading it out loud, you find those little mistakes that you might have written in, and then you can fix them.
Well, even things like, and a lot of people don't think about this, but some people, they talk very straightforward. They do not use contractions. And this allows them to feel a little more professional. And so by not using contractions, you get that sensation. Whereas if we want someone to feel more chill, they're going to say can't, don't, won't, ain't, all that kind of stuff. They're going to say kinda instead of kind of. All that kind of stuff. Get the feel of your character. Should I use contractions? Should I not? Dashes, all that kind of stuff. The language they use. Not everyone is going to use the same style of words that you use. So you might actually have to use a thesaurus and go find words that they would use. If you're writing Beast, you don't want him to sound like an idiot. So you're going to have to go and you're going to have to pick up the $10 words and really, get into the construction of proper dialogue by fixing your lexicon. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And here we go with Mike James Bengston saying, I hope one day Chuck loves the way I do things.
I already do. You're learning and you're working hard. I love that. Keep it up, homie.
And Rex tunes in here. No one can see my comments. We can. We were just ignoring you. So there. No, seriously, we were just scrolling through the comments towards the end. A lot of times we don't pop them up, especially when we have a really good conversation or an informative panel that's going on. Travis Kim, thank you for tuning in. And we are caught up pretty much. There you go.
All right.
Rob,
Well,
back to you.
I think we just have enough time to say goodbye. Like literally, like we're 5 minutes to go. So let everyone say goodbye. It's that time. I mean, 2 hours blew by. Sorry we couldn't get Buddy to connect. I think he was having some technical issues. We'll get him on. Don't worry. We have like a 60-day plan here for promotion, pre-promotion, post-promotion. Ari will be on actually on one of the breakfast brunches in the near future. He's tentatively either going to be on the 3rd or 10th. I'm just waiting to hear back from him. So we're going to get a lot of great creators in here. Of course, we'll be talking about Terraform. Chuck will be back on to talk about one of a million projects in 2021, as he always does. And Michael will have some big news coming soon. 2 projects, one project wrapping up and another one soon for the Terraform Continuum. So this is not our last one before the holiday, right? Or is it?
No. You have next Sunday.
Before Christmas, right?
Before Christmas, yeah.
But happy Hanukkah again to everybody. I'm going to leave it at that and pass it to everyone else to say goodbye. Go ahead. Meredith, you want to run the board or should I?
Yeah, I'll run the board. Let's put Chuck on the big board here.
Oh,
and Chuck, tell everybody where they can find you.
What's going on, guys? I am Chuck Pino, Pineau. You can see it right down there. You can track me down on Facebook under that name. You can track me down on Instagram under that name. You can track me down on Twitter at Chucky Pin. You can find my Chuck's Raw Reviews on YouTube. I've also started doing a live talk show where I interview different creators, not necessarily comic creators, but different creators to get into the nuts and bolts of creation, promotion, everything that comes with it. That's every Tuesdays at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific. That sounds right, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, okay. And you can also check out my publishing wing, Bonfire Press, where you can pick up such things as Belial, Welcome to the Void, and Essence House, which is on all podcast channels right now. We are heading into our season finale of season 2. You can go back, you can binge it all, check it out. So any of your podcast channels, check out Essence House now. I really think you'll enjoy it. Thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right. See, Michael, let's get you up here.
All right. Of course, you can find me on all the same things. You can find him on. Just look for C. Michael Lanning. Also, I'm on Silverline Wednesday Wham, where we stream over there on Silverline Comics. And Silverline Comics has a special right now. If you check out silverlinecomics.com/mystery box, they have auctions for original art in mystery boxes. And included in that is a signature series book that has my very first published cover. So go and check that out before Wednesday and maybe grab some original art. And back to you, Rob.
Well, I'm actually going to put myself up here.
There you go.
There it is. So you guys can follow me at MEREJ99, as you can see over here. That is where most of my social media links are, and you do a Google search, and a lot of my stuff will pop up. I am getting ready to launch my first, well, it's technically my second Kickstarter, but it's the same book because the first time was I was just experimenting. But anyway, head over to Kickstarter, take a look. You can do a search for Meredith Loughran. It is the Compendium of Dread. It's an anthology of dark fiction. So it's got crime, horror, paranormal, and all kinds of stuff. And, it kind of ties into what we're doing with the what we were talking about earlier with flash fiction and things like that. These are flash fiction stories that I've written over several years, finally compiled into one book. And believe it or not, part of the reason for the Kickstarter is actually to pay for art, because there are several of those stories that are being scripted right now. They need artwork. Artwork costs money, because I am not technically an artist, although I am going to try. Back to you, Rob. You're on mute.
Well, that's it, guys. We're out of here. Happy Hanukkah. We're just out of time, just under the 2-hour mark. I appreciate everyone who showed up today. Talking about the 8-page challenge. It's so important. It shows the creators never stop. The journey that we all went on, we go on together. I was talking about journeys last night really quickly on my You're Not Alone, and you have to understand you're on your journey right now. It's not about what has happened. It's about what you're going to do. Stop getting caught up in the past and go out there and create. Shut up and create. That's basically where we're at in 2021. Stop making excuses. Get out there. Work with other people. Put your ego away. Listen to other people, because you're going to learn by listening. You're not going to learn by telling people what you know. That's it. We're out. See you next week.